So yeah, I have my app copy now and my template. So, and all the template is I created a React app, I added my mock API, like I did a bunch of stuff in there so that I don't have to do it in the future. It just kind of speeds things up. So I'm going to open up my folder, I'm going to get inside that specific folder. And then I'm going to come here and, it gives you the options. Okay, if you have an existing repository from the command line, you can copy over to this. So when you create a React app, it creates a Git repository for you, or not a Git repository, but like a local Git repository. So in here, I can run all these commands. This remote branch already exists. Status. And if I check my web page, refresh it, it should have done that. I think it's because I copied it, and the template we already pushed to a different Git repository, so I have to delete the. I have to change something in here. Now I can. There we go. Now when I refresh my Git, I can see that I have all my stuff initialized, which is awesome.
I'm a little confused about what you just did.
The templates that we've been using, or that we created?
Yes, I know.
I copied that over.
You copied that over in Visual Studio.
Yeah.
To
Yeah. But I did it in a weird way.
Okay.
I didn't just copy the contents, I copied the entire folder.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of took a Git repository with it, and I needed to change a configuration file. If you do it another way, you don't have to do that, or if you do it properly. There's some Git commands you can type to change the origin repository, but there's a slight issue that, it's kind of...
So what's the best way we should go about using our template?
You should... create a new folder, or no, you shouldn't create a new folder. Instead of doing what I did where I was trying to push an existing one,
Mm-hmm.
you should clone the empty repository and then copy the files over. That's the best way to do it. So you know how it gave you the option, I wish I could go back to that page, but it gave you the option to, go ahead and clone it and start from nothing, or add a new repository or something like that, or push from an existing one. What I did was I pushed from an existing one. What I should have done was clone a new repository and then just copy the files over. Then I wouldn't run into that issue. But anyway, so here, I initialized the React app. That's done and complete. So what do I want to work on first? I kind of want to work on the actual recipe card first. I think that'll be a good one. My user story is as a user, I want to be able to see an image of a recipe with a description and name, so I can decide if I want the recipe. And I need to create a card with an image, recipe name, and description. So if I come into my app, first, I open this ticket up in a new tab, and then I can come here, and now that I have an actual repository, I can create a new branch. So I create a new branch, it gives me the commands to clone it locally, so I can put those into my terminal, hit enter, and then when I type git status, you'll see that I'm in branch 2 feature recipe card. It's awesome. All right. So, getting adjusted with my application. I already have React Router installed because I did that all through my template, and this is going to be my home page. So, slash path slash goes to layout, but because it's nested routes, the index is actually home. So I'm gonna do everything I need to do inside of my home view, which I've created here. Let me run the application, and I'm gonna forgo testing for now, just for a moment. Just for the sake of time. This is what my app looks like. I have, this placeholder for navbar footer. Should have saved my navbar from yesterday because we made a navbar and I was like, that's my template, but it's okay. Since here I have home, and I know that I'm going to need some kind of recipe card, right? So I'm going to create a new file. It's going to be recipe card.js, and I'm going to create a new React component called recipe card. And then I know that I'm going to need to display it inside of my application. So here instead of home, I'm going to take that div and I'm going to render a recipe card. What does my recipe card say? It just says recipe card in it. It doesn't actually have anything inside of it yet. I'm using Material UI. So I can, I don't know what I just did there. So I can go to React component page, and I just want a nice card to put there. Where is the card? And I want a card with an image on it. What's this one? Media. I don't know what the difference between these are, but let's use this one right here. Take its source code, copy it, let's say, yep, that's what we're doing. So the media card is the recipe card. And then in my React app, I can now see this card. It says Lizard on it. We're ignoring that for a moment, but I have a single card, right? Now my issue is that I need to get information from my API to display on this card. Also, has some buttons. We're going to ignore those for now, but I think I can kind of look ahead. It's not in this issue ticket, so I don't want to start working on things outside the scope of the issue ticket I have, right? I just want to see a recipe with a description and name, with an image, with a description name, so I can decide. The scope of this is just like create a card with an image, recipe name, and description. So
Just write stuff in.
yeah, I just want to write stuff in. Thinking ahead, I can be modular with it, and I can say, okay, this is going to be the recipe name. Maybe actually it's a recipe card, so I can just say name. I'm going to need a description. And then these buttons, I'm going to change them up. So what we say, like burn and cook was the deal. I'm just going to change up the words there. I'm not going to implement the buttons, but I'm just going to change up the name. And then image. I want to make it variable, so I'm going to do image there. And then for the title, I'm just going to use the name, whatever that name is. And then I'm going to pass in props. And say, here's my props. And my props is an image, a name, and a description. Right? And that's what we're going to do. We have a little thing that says burn cook. Maybe I center these buttons. Maybe I do some other kind of CSS wizardry, but for now this seems pretty much good enough. And it does take an image, name, and description. So it does meet this acceptance criteria. So I think that's good enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a commit message. I said feature, created recipe card. And then I'm going to add these files to the commit and commit. And I'm gonna sync my changes. Say okay. And then in GitHub, I come back here, refresh the page. You can see that I have a new branch here, and this branch had a recent pushes to it less than a minute ago, so I can compare and pull. And I want to merge it into my main branch. And I can leave, create the pull request. And inside of it, I can now see the changes to the code. I can see the files that I've changed, all that kind of stuff. That way, the version history is kept. And then I want to merge and pull. And I can provide a message. I'm going to say feature created recipe card for merge. And then delete the branch. So as I look at my issues, I now have the recipe card issue closed, because it closes automatically when you do that merge process. This one shows to be closed. I don't know why it's open. Mark is done. Close issue. So I have a few more issues. I can go to my project here. That up, and I can see on my Kanban board, okay, what's next for this milestone. And if I want to see by milestone, I can create a new list, check out the milestones, and so I want to display a random recipe. I need to also have the burn and cook decision buttons. Maybe I missed a step in my planning because I rushed it. I should have also like a step for like the find recipe button, right? But let's go ahead and use this issue ticket just to kind of create all these features. I can create a branch, copy that here, and then go back to VS Code, and I can close, I was running my React app, now I can close that, run those commands that GitHub gave me, and I type git status to verify, and I should be on feature branch 1. And you can see that my recipe card is still here. So I can kind of like build off of it. So what are, looking at this issue ticket, I need to use the Spectacular API to get a random recipe. Here's the endpoint that I need to use. I need to see the documentation details. And then I can start working through my acceptance criteria. As a user does not know what to put for dinner, I want this button to generate a random recipe.
So you have merged recipe card back to main, and now branched again.
And I branched out.
Okay, yeah. Got it.
So I'm working on new tickets. So let's start on the first one. It's almost like we could break this up even into smaller and smaller things. Like I need to create a button that says find recipe on it, right? But like best practice is keep it relatively vague. That way you're not like dictating exactly how implementation should go. You want to leave it to your developers to explore creative solutions, everything like that. I'm one that prefers a little more detail. I'm trying to teach you the best practice rather than how I do it. But again, it's personal. It's on a personal project. It's personal, right? I would write out implementation details because this is how I keep myself from forgetting things. Okay, so there's a lot here. Break it up, maybe break it up a little more. So, I edited it. It's like, I already created it earlier, but I just want to break them more, right? So I want to, create button that when pressed sends a fetch request to get a new recipe. The recipe will be generated. Recipe data will be displayed on a card. Maybe I don't put it, maybe it's on my acceptance criteria, maybe I put it up here. Here's just like some additional information. So let's start with that, right? Let's go to Material UI and let's find a button. And I kind of like the outline button. So I can take this button and I can say find recipe. That's what the button does. And it's red, so I need to import the button from Material UI button. I'm supposed to get my React app started. It's like, let's see what this looks like. Okay, I have a button that I can find recipe. It doesn't do anything right now. But my recipe card is showing. What does my wire diagram show, right? It just shows find a recipe button, and then it gets a new recipe. So that tells me I have to conditionally render my component, right? I need to make it so that this card doesn't show up, you know, when the recipe button is there, right? So it's like, okay, how would I do that? I don't know. Let's use state, React state, right? It's kind of our go-to when we want to change things on screen. So I can create a state, and then I have show card, and set show card. It's equal to a use state, and by default, do I want to show the card or not?
No.
No. So I want that set to false by default. And then I can say, okay, I can create a ternary statement in here, and I can say, you know, if show card,
Show card.
I can show the card, you know, else, no. Right, so let's go check our app. Did that work? It worked. But when I click on the button, I want to find the recipe, and then I want to make the card disappear. I want to make the button, I want the button disappear, and I want the card to appear. Right, so I can say, all right, we'll take this button and formatting, and I can say onClick equals, and then we can have a function that says get recipe maybe. So I gotta create a function down here, get recipe. And I want to set show card to true. Right? I'm gonna leave myself a comment like gets the recipe. I'm gonna do set show card to true. Alright. So let's put that. Card shows up. But now my recipe button's still there. So I have to do the same thing. I have to create a ternary statement and say, okay, do the inverse, not show card. I want to have the button appear, else I can show no, right? But it's like I look at this, it's like, yeah, I could have two separate statements, or, you know, if I did the reverse, I already have this ternary, can move, okay, let's make sure it works first, right? If the button disappears, cool. Or I could, instead of null there, I could have this button render, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Turners will get a little messy after a while. If you find yourself using too many of them, it's not really great practice, but one or two is fine. Okay. But I want it to actually get the recipe. So I need to implement a fetch request, right? And how do we implement fetch requests inside of React? We can go back to our lessons and we can go find the part on React state. React in hooks. And then in here, I can look up my use effect hook. And here's one I have that does fetch requests. Right? Don't have to overcomplicate it. We have one right here. Now I am gonna have to change things, but there's a skeleton of it. All right. So what's the URL that I need to use? Get the random one. Where's my, I have too many tabs open. There it is. I can get random recipe right here. Right. And then I'm just cleaning up what I could have been. What's up, Charlie? I just want to clean up some stuff there. It's like, all right, I have this API. Now, I do need to generate an API key for this API, so I'm going to go to my console, dashboard, where do I generate my API key? Okay, so my API key here. And as we know with API keys, we need to put them into a .environment variable. API key. Key equal to API key. Close that. Now it's hidden. And there is something. Here, this page right here. Okay. So you need an account for an API key. Once you have your API key, you have to put it in the request URL to make every request. So, question mark API key equals your API key. So inside of our fetch request, we're going to need to do that, and we're going to need to input our API key. Because our API key is a variable, we're going to use a template literal, and then I forget how to deal with React environment variables. So custom environment variable, I think it's, there you go, this is it. Process environment, React app underscore, and then I need to do API underscore key, because that's what I put inside my environment variable area. I don't think any of you all are using any APIs with an API key, so you don't have to deal with this, but because we kind of went down this train of thought, I'm going to need it. Before I do that, I'm going to real quick make sure that it is my API key is actually working. I'm actually getting my API key the right way. There we go. So inside my app, go to console. I'm not getting my API key correctly. Let me restart the React app. Maybe that has something to do with it. Nope, undefined. There we go. That's right. Over here in environment variable, I have to make the whole thing React underscore app. So React won't deal with API keys that don't have React app in front of it. I learned that the hard way. Also, I want to add my .bmp file to my gitignore so it doesn't get saved to GitHub, because that's very bad when that happens. Okay, so now let's double check the page. Let's see. Start again. If not, I'll just put it in line. Shouldn't put it in line, but I don't want to echo suffer through me trying to figure that out. Okay, there you go. My API key is now showing, so that means that my API